my sweet friends, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. I hope you are all doing well. Well, the summer is heating up here in Michigan and we're getting our temps into the 90s with high humidity, so I figured what better inspiration could there be than to create a mini album with a bright and cheerful summer theme. And so what we have here is our mini album with lots of pockets, lots of inserts. Got flip pages, we've got cards, we've got tuck spots. There is plenty of room for all of your pictures and journaling, including all of these fun cut apart images. So we've got all kinds of room in here for your summer memories. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we'll make it together. I've got my Summer Vibes collection here, and this is from Echo Park. I'll admit this is probably not one that I would normally gravitate toward, but it was really fun to create with. I really love those super bright colors, and this collection has great geometrics on the back of the pattern. So it was very easy to work with, and it had a ton of cut aparts with the perfect summer theme for our project today. We're going to start with the base, and I'm starting with 65-pound cardstock. I'm going to create the cover, and then we'll add some pages inside. So our first piece is going to be 7 high by 10 3/4 wide. I have it scored at 5 and also 5 3/4. So this is going to be a generous amount of volume to fill with all of those fun patterns and inserts that we want to add. So the next piece is going to be some pages, of course, because we need those fun flips. So I am going to be sticking with that 65-pound weight cardstock. This time my measurement will turn into a 7 high by 10 1/4 wide. And so I'm going to score that at 5 and also 5 1/4. So we're going to get a 1/4 inch on this spine. And I do want to add this with our regular double-sided adhesive as well as this Tombow to make sure that it is well secured. So I want to add this here, just placing that corner together and then keeping everything straight. And even as I work along, and I will press that well to make sure that I have a good contact. So what I want to do next is kind of reinforce the thickness of our cover and give it a little bit more sturdiness. So I have an additional piece cut here. This one is 7 high by 10 wide and scored at 5. So right in the middle, and of course we'll do 2 glues for this as well. You'll see I have added my double-sided tape already to each side, but I've only pulled the backing off one side to begin with. I think it's just a little bit easier than trying to wrangle all of these pieces at once. So I'm just going to bring that right on up to that score so I know that it will fold over properly, and then press that into place. Now is the time to flip that over and remove the backing off of this side of the paper tape. I'll add more Tombow and then flip that over. And this is going to give us 4 thicknesses of this paper for a very sturdy cover. So I'll just repeat that for this side as well, and I'll use the same measurement and the same procedure to add all of those layers. Okay, so that's going to be the base for the cover. I want to add one additional item before we move on, and that's going to be a pocket for each of these pages so that we can fill it with some nice inserts. So I'm going to show you. So I've got my scoreboard here, and the piece for the pocket page is going to be 9 inches high by 6 inches wide. I'm going to score that at 1/2 inch and then also at 5 1/2. I'll flip that around and then I'll also score at 2, and this is going to become our pocket. So I'm just going to come in and remove this portion. I'm going to cut all along that score line up until they intersect, and then I will remove that. And this is going to be the top portion of our pocket. Just take your time and do a good job and get a nice even cut here. Now remove that. I'm also going to clip off this very corner so that we don't add any additional bulk that we don't want behind this page. I'll fold that up and then fold it along that score line. I want to add some double-sided tape here to adhere this pocket, but before we do that, we'll go ahead and finish the inside. It will be much easier to get that into the pocket before it is assembled. So I've just got a little bit of offcut from as I was cutting the rest of the pages, and so I decided to get some use out of it here. So this is going to be just short, but the pocket will cover that, and so the measurement would be 6 7/8 by 4 7/8, and of course if a little bit goes under the pocket, it will not show. So that will be the pattern for the back. So let's add our tape. I'm just going to first add a little bit to these flaps. Fold that over and then add more tape all the way around the outside. We will be using our 2 glue combo to adhere this to the base. So I'll just bring that back in and add our Tombow. And then line that up to the corner and along the side. Press that down to get a good contact. I want to cover the front of this pocket as well, so I have an additional piece cut here. It is 1 7/8 by 4 7/8, and that just gives us a nice layering pattern. I picked a nice contrast so that it will be very noticeable, and this is going to be the pocket for the left hand side. I have one for here as well. So you can see how nicely that is starting to fill up. Let's set this aside just for a second so that we can work on the second style of pocket page that we have. I have this pattern cut to be 6 7/8 by 6. And then I just scored it so that it would be 4 7/8, so the full size sheet. And you will want to keep your fold on the outside. So you may have to flip your paper over to get that score line in the right place. And you'll see why in just a minute. But before we add that, I do want to add my Tombow here. And this is going to seal up our pocket. And I'm just being very careful to keep that glue away from the edge so that it doesn't squeeze out. And I will apply pressure for enough time for this to set up nicely before I move on to the next step. Time to get this added to the book. Now, because this is going to be a pocket page and it will be holding inserts, I think it's a good idea to continue on with those 2 glues. So I will just remove that backing now and add my Tombow. I've gotten a lot of good feedback about the Art Glitter Glue, so I am going to attempt to acquire some, and I have been warned that during the colder winter months they will not ship it to Michigan. So I'm going to try it, and then hopefully if it works out I can order a quantity of it that will get me through until it is warm again. So I'll let you know how that goes. So of course I'm just going to add this to the outside of the book. and this will hold our inserts in when the book is folded. So let's just add that. We're going to get a beautiful border of that orangey cardstock, which is so perfect for a summer themed mini album. So let's work on the page on the right. I have another pattern cut here to be 6 7/8 high by 9 wide and scored at 4 7/8. So we have flap again, but instead of turning it into a pocket, we're going to just leave that as a flap. So let's just add that here. Centered well. And I thought it would be nice to include a place where you could tuck in something if you don't want to adhere it. So let's use one of these journal cut aparts as a tuck spot. I'll double glue that one as well, just to be on the safe side. So I've got this. Now I do want to use my T-square ruler just to get this on straight. And so I'll just measure up 1/4 inch and then get that stuck down. I'm going to guess the middle right about there. This is another piece that you really want to let dry and set up well before you would add anything behind it. But I can just give you an example of how you could tuck something under there and it will not be adhered to the book. You could write on the back, add your journaling or additional photos or other flat keepsakes to the back so that you can really load this up. I have the same thing planned for this side, so I'll just go ahead and repeat that process using the same measurements until I get all of this filled in on this side as well. Okay, so now we have our flip, and it will have a side pocket here, a flap page on this side, and then a tuck spot as well. We'll flip again. We'll get 2 generous size pockets for the inside pages. Here is another flap page with the tuck spot, and then another side pocket. So what I want to do is add some inserts to those side pockets, and I thought it would be a great idea to bring in some just standard A2 size cards with a cardstock measurement of 5.5 by 8.5. I scored it at 4 1/4, and now my pattern paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I did finish the inside and the outside. So this is a very sturdy insert, and I'm just going to tuck that right into our side pocket. You see how nicely that's going to hold that in place. So I'll add one here as well. And I also want to include one of the 4x4 cut aparts. This just adds a lot of interest and detail. Love all of those layers. One for the back. This is a great place to add your journaling. Now let's add some inserts for these larger pockets. I'm very excited because I don't often get to use the 4x6 cut aparts, especially when they have this kind of profile portrait orientation. And so I've got 2 of the larger image cut aparts and then 2 of the 4x4 cut aparts, and these can tuck right into this pocket. There will be room for additional flat keepsakes and mementos in there, so you can really load that up. So we'll put these into the pocket on the right hand side, and that's going to fill up our mini very well. You see how nice and full and chunky that's getting. Let's go ahead and add some ribbon. I just pulled a generous length of beautiful stitched satin, and then I just tacked it down with a little bit of my double-sided tape to hold that in place before I add the additional layers for the cover. I can come back and tie my bow when I get that all set. First I want to add a base in, so I've got more of that pretty blue wave pattern. And this is going to get the border of the base showing, so we'll have that great orangey cardstock. This is a nice cardstock. It's kind of vintagey, so it isn't too bright, And so I think that works really well for this project. Now I want to add a little depth and dimension, so the next layer will be added with my foam, and so that will build that up. Now I did split this with a layering pattern just so that I would have enough to cover this whole section, and I did of course add the orange border to this as well. So now we're really just getting such a nice layering here of our patterns. I do want to add a die cut doily so that I can break up that busyness just a little bit. I'm adding that closer to the top so that I can leave room for a small flower arrangement. And I do have one of the journal cut apart tags. I do have one of the journal cut apart images that I cut with a tag die. I would typically want to add an eyelet, but because I did have to cut a little bit into that letter, I didn't want to cover any more of that up. So I just elected to leave that off this time, but I did add a little bit of my twine so that it would have an extra detail. I'm going to put that a little higher than middle again so that my flowers will fit. I put that with foam spacer as well, just so that we can continue to build that up. Now, I don't have a very large flower arrangement, but I do think it's perfect for this book, and I picked some blue chrysanthemums, and they really coordinate well with my background pattern. And then I did add a little bit of die cut foliage with some loopy twine bows and netting. I'm just adding that with a little bit of hot glue, and that will cover the cut end of that tag, and being careful not to cover up those words. I wish I had a charm that had flip-flops, but unfortunately I don't. I'm going to settle for this nautical wheel, and I'll add that to the top corner here. I'm using string with hot glue, removing the excess, then cover that cut string with a button. I'll finish that off with these sequins here, and that will help to balance that large metal charm. That's going to be all for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and remember to check in the description for links for the products I mentioned in this video. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye!